things of value deserve our full attention. We have a problem of not paying attention. Walking to a room and looking but not seeing, having a conversation but not hearing, going for dinner and eating but not tasting. Recently, Cindy and I were on vacation. It was our first big vacation together, so before you gasp when I tell you where it was, France. Wow. C'est la vie. Of course, we did the things that people do in France. One of them was we went to the Eiffel Tower. And do you know what the Eiffel Tower is? Come on. We know what the Eiffel Tower is. We walked up the Eiffel Tower. And we got to the observation deck. We didn't go all the way. It was closed because they're painting it for the Olympics. You couldn't go up to the top. We were so disappointed that we wouldn't have to walk all that way. We got to the observation deck. And this beautiful panorama opens up before us. You can see the symmetry of Paris. The way the buildings are built, the streets are straight. There's a limit on the height of the buildings in that area. I think it's 6 stories. Everything is amazing. And you follow this line, and then there's another monument that's, I don't know, only 1,000 years old or something. It's all over the place. So we're sitting there in these beautiful chairs, overlooking the city of Paris, just taking it all in. We were doing our best to pay full attention, to be in that moment, just in the moment. And there was this nice-looking family beside us, 2 boys and parents. And I looked over at them, and they were also in the moment, but on their phones. I thought it was really interesting. They're sitting down, and every one of them had their phones out, and they were scrolling through their phones while they're sitting here with this vista out before them. I thought it was remarkable. Not because I'm so much better, but because to me it shows the way we miss things because we're not paying attention, or attention is where it shouldn't be. And I've been there. I mean, I've talked to friends, and I know how to nod and say yes, so they think I'm really listening. But I wasn't. I didn't remember what they said. None of you here have been victims to that. I have found myself driving somewhere, and then all of a sudden, I find myself parked here in the parking lot in the office, and this is not where I was going. I find myself reading books that I know are utterly important for my sermon, and I've read 5 pages and go, what? What did I read again? I didn't retain one word. It is difficult to pay attention. And I think a deep dysfunction of our culture is not paying attention. Missing moments, being somewhere else. Things of value deserve our full attention. We're starting a new series today called A Life of Lived Faith. And this is through the book of James. And really, James is very concerned about saying this in his whole book. You'll recognize this through the whole book. Hearers of the word are doers of the word. This is something James says through the whole book. People of faith live out their faith. When we talk the talk, we walk the walk. This is very important to James. And the author of this book in the Bible is James. He's the brother of Jesus, and he's convinced of something profoundly simple that he wants us to hear. A person of faith gives their faith their full attention. As the French would say, faites attention. That's all I know. I practiced that. For this message, practice my French. They hear the word. Disciples hear the word. They see it, and they do it. They hear and listen. They taste. They are in the word, giving it their full attention. And because of this, hearers of the word are also doers of the word. There's a relationship between those two things that can't be separated. They can't help it because they've given their full attention to the word. And I hope you love the book of James. It's one of my favorites. I love it for its simplicity and how it has such practical advice for us as disciples of Christ. And I invite you to hear his words today and let them speak to you. Because James, inspired by the Holy Spirit, deserves our full attention. This is James chapter 1, verses 22 to 25. Do not merely listen to the word and so deceive yourselves. Do what it says. Anyone who listens to the word but does not do what it says is like someone who looks at his face in a mirror and, after looking at himself, goes away and immediately forgets what he looks like. But whoever looks intensely into the perfect law that gives freedom and continues in it, not forgetting what they heard, but doing it, they will be blessed in what they do. The message of the good news deserves our full attention. If you believe the word, you do the word. Hearers are doers. Faith is as faith does. Now, I think this passage reflects an emphasis of James. Genuine faith is a faith that works, and you can't miss it all through this book, and he insists on this. We need to pay attention to it and not miss it. It's sobering. In our passage today, there's this structure that I think you might find interesting, and I know David Van Essen spoke last week. David, put your hands up so we remember who you are there, just in case you've forgotten. He talked about grammar. Well, I'm not quite... I say this in a complimentary way, quite the grammar geek that he is. But I did come across this that I found very interesting. This passage, verses 22 to 25, is written in what's called a chiastic structure. Chiastic structure is very Hebrew, very Jewish. You see it in the Proverbs and Psalms a lot. Basically what it is, it's this kind of sandwich thing where there's a point made, then there's an illustration, and the point's made again in a different way, slightly different to drive it home. And the reason people use chiastic structure was because it was catchy, it's easy to remember, but it drives the point home. It's like it's saying, pay attention. This is important. These things we don't want you to miss. Hear this. So this is what he says in this sermon today. There's 3 points I want to talk about. Listening without doing is self-deceit. And there's a parable in the center, 22 to 23 and 24 is a parable in James. Listening without doing means you're not paying attention. And then the last part, listening with doing leads to blessing. Those all reflect this chiastic structure. You see, the first point is like the second point. The first point says it in a negative way, imperative, and then a negative. The second one has an imperative, and then a positive point, driving home the importance of this. And all of this amounts to us hearing what he has to say. If you believe the word, do the word. Hearers are doers. Faith is as faith does. Listening without doing is self-deceit. This is in verse 22. I'd like to read it again. Do not merely listen to the word and so deceive yourselves. Do what it says. If you don't listen to the word, when you hear it, you are deceiving yourselves. You're cheating yourself. You're selling yourself short. It's self-destructive. And you're not paying attention. The word here is God's revealed word, the gospel, his perfect law, the law of love, and the gospel, and it's about our response to it when it's presented. It deserves to be paid attention to, not just heard. The encounter should be life-changing. But people don't pay attention. And we become merely hearers of the word, not doers. And James says that is the way of foolishness. They don't belong together. Actually, being a hearer and doer belong together. You can't be a hearer and not a doer. That's incompatible. And he gives this warning. You deceive yourselves if you think you can separate those two things. You're deceiving yourselves. There's no such thing as just being a hearer and not a doer. He calls it self-deception. There was another word for it. Jesus called it hypocrisy through the Gospels. Jesus talked about people that heard the word and didn't do the word, hypocrites. It's the same thing. James is leaning on Jesus here. You're making a huge mistake, he says. You are robbing yourself of the fullness of life. Listening without doing is self-deceit. Then he goes on to illustrate how. Listening without doing means you are not paying attention to God's word. And this is the parable of the mirror that James tells. Anyone who listens to the word but does not do what it says is like someone who looks at his face in a mirror and, after looking at himself, goes away and immediately forgets what he looks like. That's easy to visualize. It's comical and it's kind of alarming. You see yourself in a mirror, you look and you walk away and you don't remember what you look like. So it's like I look at myself in the mirror and walk away and go, did I shave or not? I can't remember if I did. I just looked, but I don't know if I have a beard or if I don't have a beard. Did I comb my hair today? I don't know. I just looked. Is my hair gray or brown? I think it must be brown. I don't know. I just looked. I don't know what color it is. It's a vivid picture he gives us. None of that now. But it does reveal a serious problem. Because at first blush, it seems kind of hard to relate to this. Who does this? Who does this? How does this happen? His point is it's just foolishness. And just hearing the word and not doing it is like seeing yourself in a mirror and not remembering what you've seen. But there's something that remains unspoken, something unknown in this parable, something deeper he's getting at. When they look in the mirror in this parable, what do they see? What do they see? Do they see anything? Did they see someone else? Do they see someone else and not know who it is? Or are they just not paying attention? The language and the wording talks about a type of looking, a looking that's not intent, a looking that is not really paying attention. It wasn't dark, there wasn't bad lighting, it's not like that. It's not like the mirror was cracked. It's not like they didn't have their glasses on. It's a type of looking. It's a careless looking. It's an uncomplicated looking. It's not paying attention. There's a word in this section that's really interesting, and it's hard for translators to translate. The word themselves has this really interesting Greek phrase. And when they interpret it, they look at it this way. There's two possibilities as to what this could mean. One, they don't recognize the image of God in themselves when they see themselves. So this is like a person looks at themselves, does some self-reflection, doesn't see the image of God. This means they don't see themselves as creation and don't recognize God as creator. There's this gulf. There's this problem with their humanity. They're not seeing themselves properly. That's indicated in the Greek language. The second possibility is they don't see their own brokenness. They look in the mirror, they look at themselves, they reflect, but because it's such a quick look, they've got blind spots in their lives, they've got sin issues, they've got brokenness that they don't even see. They're not seeing anything. They're not paying attention. They don't see it. So, this little parable of James says they walk away without seeing themselves because they did not look. They didn't pay attention. It is self-deception, and it is self-destructive. Listening without doing means not paying attention to God's word. It is self-deceit and it is hypocritical. Listening with doing, this is the third point in the chiastic structure. Listening with doing leads to blessing. This is with the positive aspect of the chiastic structure. This is back to 125, just James 1:25. But whoever looks intently into the law that gives freedom and continues in it, not forgetting what they have heard, but doing it, they will be blessed in what they do. The mirror imagery is still there. We can see it. They're still looking, right? There's this gazing, there's this looking. Whoever looks intently, it's this image of a mirror. Whoever pays attention, whoever sees, whoever hears, whoever tastes of the goodness of God will respond by doing it. That's the response. In other words, true listening leads to doing. They are connected and they can't be pulled apart. They are the same thing. Going back to the parable of the mirror, in contrast to the one who looks and doesn't see, there is an intent looking here in contrast. It's like they look and see the image of God in themselves. They understand that they are creation and that God is creator. It's like they look and see their own brokenness and their need for God. There's an acute awareness of their need for God, and it's important enough that they pay attention. There's another change from verse 22 that's interesting. It changes from word to the perfect law. Not just law, it's the perfect law, the fulfilled law, the law that Jesus brought into fulfillment. Remember, Jesus said, I didn't come to get rid of the law. I came to fulfill the law. And why, I wonder, because word just seemed fine to me. I'm comfortable with that. But here he uses fulfilled law, perfect law. It's different. Why not keep law there? What is the perfect law? And we've talked a lot as a church about the Shema of Jesus. We call it the law of love. And this is what James is referring to. The interpretation of the Torah, the books of law, by Jesus, a fulfillment of that. In Mark 12, verses 28 to 32. What is the greatest commandment? The most important one, answered Jesus, is this. Hear, O Israel, that's the Shema. The Lord your God, the Lord is one. Love the Lord your God with all your heart and with all your soul and with all your mind and with all your strength. The second is this. Love your neighbor as yourself. There is no commandment greater than these. And James continues talking about this perfect law, but we look at Paul too in Romans chapter 8, verse 2, referring to this. And Jesus brought this action about. This is what Paul says in Romans 8, 2. Because through Christ, Jesus, the law of the Spirit who gives life, has set you free from the law of sin and death. This is the perfect law that brings life. It's the fulfillment. It's the Shema. It brings meaning to all the other laws. It's the law of love. And it brings more than what the law brings by itself. The law brings enslavement. The law brings slavery and legalism. And the law means that it's never quite good enough. So those who look in the mirror see the image of God in themselves. They see the Creator, they understand that they're creation, and they see their own brokenness. They're paying attention. And the law of love, the fulfilled law, brings freedom, is what James says. Those who look and see and pay attention will see this and will experience freedom. To James, there's no hearers only. There's only those who hear and do. Hearers are doers. The word, the law of love, deserves our full attention. Now, if we give the perfect law our full attention, we will be blessed. Here's what we need to know. The perfect law brings freedom. It's a bit of an irony because following the law did not bring freedom, it brought slavery. But the perfect law itself, following it, isn't about slavery or legalism or earning salvation. It's about freedom. And hear what James has to say. Those who hear the gospel do the gospel. The good news transforms them. The gospel transforms them. Jesus transforms them. That's the perfect law. And the power of the gospel and the good news of Jesus is to transform lives and give life abundant. You will be blessed if you look and pay attention. Listen. Perceive the words. Listening means doing. In our last portion of the verses for today, James says this, not forgetting what they have heard, but doing it. They will be blessed in what they do. The blessing is in the doing. That sounds a bit troubling at first. The blessing is in the doing. Let me explain this. You know what that blessing is? It's not for later. It's not for the afterlife. It's not intangible. It's for now. Blessing in their doing, blessing while doing, blessing through doing. Romans 2:13 about doing says this, and I always feel like I'd like to bring the Apostle Paul into James because people think, James just doesn't sound quite right. I'm a bit uncomfortable. Well, here's what the Apostle Paul says, Romans 2:13. For it is those who hear the law who are righteous in God's sight. For it is those who obey the law who will be declared righteous. This is the law of freedom, the law of love, not the old law, the new law. But listen carefully. They will be blessed not because of the doing, but in the doing. It's a big difference. God's favor rests on those who do God's work, and it's something experienced in the here and now. And I think we know this. I think we experience this, that we are blessed when we do. That's the secret of the kingdom. It's the upside-down kingdom. When you lose your life for his sake, you find it. It's in giving that we receive. This is the law of love. Active listening is a lot of work. You ever tried it? We tried it in our small groups. We had to learn it. We still fail. We still try. We do it in relationships. It looks like this. It looks like being fully present with someone when they're talking to you. Watching them. Looking at their body. Hearing their words. Asking questions of clarification. Being fully present with them. It's loving, and it requires that we slow down. And it's very hard work. It's draining. We have a problem. We need to slow down. Not paying attention is destroying us. And I think this is an essential word for us today because we have swung so far. We live in a culture of words divorced from actions, don't we? Words are just divorced from actions. Words seem to matter more than actions. You say the right thing, it doesn't matter what you do. People are judged by what they say, not what they do. Words are important. I give that. It's important. Words have power. They are important, but they need to match our actions, or it's deceit. It's hypocrisy. Whenever there's a hot issue in culture, we can simply do this without paying attention. Someone posts something, we just like. We like it. We retweet it. We repost it. We share it without really paying attention, without really looking at the values that it represents, without really thinking about who it's going to hurt. It's so easy. Signing petitions online is so easy. You just click on it. You don't have to do anything. It's just words, and it's not really paying attention. Attention is difficult. We brush past things that are difficult. We click buttons. It's easy. It's disposable. It's cheap. But we're called to pay attention to life, which is a gift given by our Creator, and go through it with our eyes open and see the Creator's hand in creation. See the image of God in people as you talk to them. Pay attention. Know your brokenness as you go through life. Not doing so is like walking past a bunch of Rembrandts while you're on your phone. Not doing so is like going to a concert with earbuds in. Doesn't make sense. It's like talking to a friend but checking your messages as they pour out their life. It's a deep, deep problem. A sin, a stronghold of our culture is not paying attention. I share it too. And my friends, we have in the church have been guilty of not paying attention, and we need to do some active listening. There have been whole people groups hurt by the church, and it seems the church is more interested in saying how we are right in our thinking than listening to these people. We are divided by issues in the church, theological issues, practical issues, and it is easier to get up and walk away and go to a new church down the street than to pay attention and dive deep with people. We have people in pain in our congregations, and those are the people we don't want to have a deep conversation with, but we just say hi and walk past. We need to pay attention and go deeper. And I feel the pull of all of this, the negative stuff. I feel the pull of not looking. I feel the pull of not hearing. I feel the pull of shallowness. Things of value deserve our full attention. And this is the key, the point, the message that James is telling us. It's in paying attention that we are blessed. Slowly look in that mirror and see what is there. Pay attention. Look. When you look in that mirror, you know what you'll see? It's the grace of God poured out for you. And it's seeing your place in creation, recognize your brokenness, it's perceiving God's grace. What do you see when you look in the mirror? That sound effect made it sound like it's not going to be good. What you see when you look in the mirror. We don't know. What do you see when you look in the mirror? And when we love God with all our hearts and all our soul and all our mind, and when we love others because we love God and have encountered His grace, we can't help but be people who hear the word and do the word. Hearers of the word are also doers of the word. People of faith live out their faith. We talk the walk and we walk the talk. Things of value deserve our full attention. The things of God deserve our full attention. The law of love deserves our full attention. Take a look in the mirror of grace. What do you see?